There was an online tournament with some pretty interesting results last night, so I wanted to look over this tournament and take a look at some of the deck lists today. Notably, we'll see that Raging Bolt is still very popular, having 1, 2, 3 placements in the top 16, and also being the most popular deck by a large margin. So, in a 150-person tournament, there were 32 Raging Bolts, which is 20%. The next most popular deck was 16 Gardevoir and 15 Lugia at 10 and 9%. So Raging Bolt Ogerpon very popular, but uh it looks like people are starting to play decks that have a specifically good Raging Bolt Ogerpon matchup. So let's start with talking about Pidgeot Control, which got first, third, and ninth in this tournament. And we'll also see that Lugia is popping up. So something good about Lugia is that it has a good matchup versus Raging Bolt Ogerpon and versus Control. And Control seems to be beating Raging Bolt Ogerpon just fine. Gardevoir also has a good Raging Bolt Ogerpon matchup. Regidrago V-Star we'll have to talk about, and then we also have this other deck that we have to talk about. But let's start with Pidgeot Control, and all the lists are just going to be this list that All Out Blitzel made. He's kind of been the control guy on the internet right now. So pretty much the online community is just following whatever All Out Blitzel does with control. So we've got the Pidgeot EX base. That's going to be our search engine. Mimikyu for blocking out EX and V Pokemon that can't shred through. Luxray V is amazing because while Eri can only discard items, Luxray V can discard any sort of trainer from the opponent's card, so that's really, really good. Uh, Sandshrew stops the opponent from recurring resources. Trainer cards in your opponent's discard pile can't be put into their deck by an effect of your opponent's item or supporter. So that counters Pal Pad and it counters Team Yell's Cheer. Actually, it also counters Silene. So, yeah, the Sandshrew gets a lot of value if your opponents are trying to get back supporter cards. Great Tusk, I've gotten some questions about this one. This is a Lugia tech, so for a Luminous Energy, Bedrock Breaker, you can boss KO, Counter Catcher KO a Minccino, and knock it out. Also notable is just that it has a lot of HP, so it can knock out a Minccino, but also it has 250 health. So after it knocks out that Minccino, a Lugia can't knock it out, and a Blood Moon Ursaluna can't knock it out. And if you attach a Hero's Cape to it, that brings it up to 350. So a Chinchino with 5 energy would be able to knock it out at that point if they had 2 Minchinos down. But that Chinchino, the next one to knock it out with a Hero's Cape on, would need 5 energy, and none of them could be a double turbo. So it would take attachment from hand plus 2 from each primal turbo, and none of them are a double turbo energy, because double turbo would bring it down to 350. So Great Tusk, good against Lugia to take out Minchinos. Also, just a generally good tank if you want to just send it out there with Hero's Cape, Bravery Charm, or Defiance Vest. Let it take a hit, then penny it. It's pretty good for that as well. We have Chi-Yu EX, of course, for the Jealousy Singe. And you can actually also attack Cornerstone Ogerpon with this if you need to, if they're just trying to sweep through you with Cornerstone Ogerpon, because Radiant Charizard and Blood Moon Ursaluna can't attack into that because they have abilities. Of course, All Out Blitzel has added a canceling cologne specifically for Cornerstone Ogerpon, but I'm interested if Chi-Yu EX with a Defiance Band can also do that. Of course, you're going to have Chi-Yu, Fire Energy, Luminous Energy, and Defiance Band all in the deck to make that happen. And the only one of those that you can search out of the prizes is the Chi-Yu with Heavy Ball. Radiant Charizard and now Blood Moon Ursaluna are great attackers, because as your opponent takes prizes, these become more powerful. So Blood Moon Ursaluna EX is oftentimes better than Radzard for this deck, because with a Hero's Cape, it goes up to 360 health. With a Bravery Charm, it goes up to 310 health. And if your opponent has only one prize left, this actually attacks for free. It doesn't even need any energy. So it's a pretty crazy attacker, especially for control. And then we also have Wellspring Mask Ogerpon with the Sob attack. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. So it seems this is the new Retreat Lock card that's being used instead of Mawile. And I think that's because Wellspring Mask Ogerpon can also tank a hit from some things, so whereas Mawile can't. And also something like a Mew EX. If you trap it with Mawile, then the Mew EX can copy Mawile's other attack. Whereas with Wellspring Ogerpon, if the Mew EX copies Torrential Pump, it's going to take 3 shots to actually knock out the Wellspring Ogerpon with a Torrential Pump, because it only does 100 damage at a time. Or they can do 100 and also do the bench damage, but then they'd be shuffling their energy back, so I don't think that's very worth it. So yeah, just a little review of what is actually going on with Control right now. It's very, very strong. If we look at this person's first place matchups, how did they get to first place? They beat a Greninja EX, they beat 3 Gardevoirs, they went 1-1 against Regidrago, with Regidrago being their only loss of the tournament, this being a teal mask Regidrago. That's kind of interesting. We might have to look back at that. Then they also beat Lawson Box, Raging Bolt Ogerpon, Giratina Lost Zone, and Lugia Archeops. So, like, what is this deck losing to? And then we also have the third place Pidgeot Control. Might as well see what their matchups were. This list is a tiny bit different. It's playing Magma Basin and NTV, but it's still playing like the Wellspring Ogerpon, the Luminion, the Luxray V, the Blood Moon Ursaluna. It's playing a lot of the same cards as the other list, but not playing the Great Tusky X, notably. So probably has a worse time against Lugia. And this one lost to Dialga, which is reasonable, but the NTV should help with that. And then also lost to Gardevoir, beating 3 Raging Bolt Ogerpon, so that matchup is looking across the board very good for all the control players. And Lugia is definitely making it up here, partially because of the controls doing well, partially because of the Raging Bolt Ogerpons doing well. This is beating the other decks that are seeing success, but actually lost to Pidgeot Control against the winning Pidgeot Control. So we're going to have to see, does Pidgeot Control just beat everything? Do we have to play decks that are specifically built to beat Pidgeot Control now? I don't think that will be the case, because Pidgeot Control will never, it kind of has a cap on how popular it can be, but it can be very, very successful. It won the most recent event. It won Los Angeles Regionals, and there was also multiple Lugias around there. Pidgeot Control actually beating Lugia in the finals. So then we have 2 Gardevoir lists. We'll look at the second place Gardevoir list to start here. It's going to be an Arven Evo build with Unfair Stamp. I tend to agree with this. I've been flip-flopping back and forth between Irida and Arven, and if decks are getting faster, I think I just like Technical Machine Evolution. I like the consistency of Technical Machine Evolution. When I tried the Aroma version, I felt like I wanted it to do something more. Like I wanted a Banette EX to attack with, or I wanted a Rare Candy Gardevoir so I can use another attacker, or even just attack with Gardevoir. And then when that comes in, it's like, okay, this extra space I get by playing Irida Aroma instead of Arven Evo doesn't even feel good. So I've gone back to Arven Evo for now. This list is only playing 3 Buddy Poffin. That's like the only thing I absolutely hate about it. Everything else is fine. And then let's talk about this other deck. This is a Frostlass deck with Munkidori and Mawile. There's a lot of interesting cards to look at here. So first, obviously, we have Frostlass, which is a new card. It has the ability Freezing Shroud, put 1 damage, during Pokemon checkup, so that's in between every turn, put 1 damage counter on each Pokemon that has an ability except any Frostlass. So that's pretty crazy. If we just take a look at the standings here, let's look at Pidgeot Control. Pidgeot has an ability, so that's the main attacker. That's the main Pokemon of the deck. We also have Luminion V, Rotom V, Blood Moon Ursaluna, Radiant Charizard, Sandshrew, Mimikyu. A lot of abilities going on in that deck. Gardevoir, of course, Kirlia, Gardevoir both have abilities. Munkidori has abilities. Radiant Greninja, which we'll be seeing in a lot of deck, has abilities. So just kind of getting an idea. And then, of course, in the Raging Bolt Ogerpon deck, the Ogerpons have abilities. Radiant Greninja, Squawk ability, Mew EX, Sandy Shocks EX, Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon. They all have abilities. So Frostlass potentially doing a lot of work against the meta. And then it looks like the main attacker of this deck Now, I'm no expert. I haven't even seen this deck in action yet, and PTCG Live is down for maintenance, so I can't see it in action right now. It looks like the main attacker is the Mawile attempting trap. So you're going to find something to try to lock up into the opponent's active. You have 4 counter catchers, so they're going to get out of it a couple of times, knock out your Mawile. That's fine. You've got Lana's Aid to get your Mawile back. You've got Super Rods to get your Mawile back. And you could passively attach energy to all of your Monkey Dories. That way, while your Frostlass's Freezing Shroud is putting damage on your own Monkey Dories, you can move it off and put it onto opponent's Pokemon. And when you finally get that Mawile Tempting Trap locked to stick, Frostlass in between turns is just going to accrue damage on all of your opponent's Pokemon, hopefully eventually knocking some of them out. You also have Blood Moon Ursaluna to attack as the game goes on, and then also Elekid that does 30 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon for free, which is also a pretty interesting attacking option. So this got top 8, and if we look at what it beat Charizard, Lawson Gudra, Future Box with Iron Thorns, Raging Bolt Ogerpon, Lugia Archeops, and Gardevoir. And then this was probably an ID with the Regidrago, and then ended up eventually losing to Lugia, which I think it makes sense to lose to Lugia. If we're trying to lock things, they can get out of that a lot with Jet Energy. So that makes kind of perfect sense that it would lose to Lugia. So yeah, I don't know what to think about this deck. It looks like a pile. It looks like it doesn't actually beat people that are like building a strategy on the fly against it. Like just don't bench a lot of things with abilities, and I think you'll be fine in most scenarios. But definitely an interesting deck, and we could see people expand on this idea. I don't think this idea is fully cooked yet. And then, of course, we do have the Regidrago V-Star deck in top 8, focusing on Dragapult EX Phantom Dive as the main attack. So turn 1, you're just going to try to bench Regidrago V, a bunch of Teal Mask Ogerpons. Turn 2, we want to get the Dragon Pokemon into the discard, evolve into Regidrago V-Star, get an energy switch from Teal Mask to Regidrago, attach another energy, and then you start attacking, copying your Dragon attacks from the discard. Like I said, Phantom Dive is probably going to be the attack you're trying to lead with, but Rolling Iron is going to be good against some decks, and also we have Covert Flight to wall out all basic Pokemon decks. And if we go a little further down the list here, we'll see some other decks. So we have Future Thorns with 4 Iron Thorns and 3 Iron Crown. I'm positive this is worse than just playing 4 Iron Thorns and nothing else. Now, not to say that I think that deck is very good. I do think it's fine. I think it has some sort of potential. I've actually tested Quad Iron Thorns a little bit just to see if it was real. Something more like this deck here. And I'd say it's real to an extent. It definitely beats Lugia. It can give Raging Bolt some problems, especially if they open up with a hand that needs to use rule box abilities because they're just not going to get to. It could even give Pidgeot control an issue, maybe, because they can't use Pidgeot. With that down, they can't use Rotom, they can't lose Lumineon if Iron Thorns EX is in the active. So yeah, Iron Thorns EX with the Iron Crown just seems bad because now your opponent has an option of bossing up Iron Crown to get out of the Iron Thorns EX ability lock. So I don't like that. We then also have a 16th place Lost Zone Dragapult, which I think this makes so much sense, and it was the highest placing Dragapult variant at the Japanese Sapporo's League, it's Sapporo Champions League. I think this makes so much sense, and I've talked about this before, that you can have this single prize board of, your Dracloaks and then all of your Lost Zone stuff, and you don't give your opponent an option for a 2-prize Pokemon until you choose to evolve that Dracloak into Dragapult EX. And all the while, the Dracloak is actually a support Pokemon while it's a Dragapult EX waiting room. So this deck makes so much sense. And it's kind of just like Sablezard with extra options. So the questions are, one, should we just play Sablezard? And if we wouldn't play Sablezard, is this deck any better than Sablezard? Does this fix any of Sablezard's problems? And Sablezard's problems are going to be tanky decks, things like Blissey EX, things like Lugia V-Star, and Dragapult is also not good against those things. So it makes me think maybe Dragapult EX, like I'm sure the Dracloak enhances the consistency of the deck, and Dragapult EX forces your opponent through larger Pokemon when you decide to evolve into Dragapult EX. but I'm not sure that this is better than Sablezard. And then I guess one more deck we should look at is this other Frostlass deck, which is definitely different. It's not playing any retreat lock. Instead, it's using this Spinda with Dizzy Spin. For 1 energy, it does 10 damage to each of your opponent's Pokemon, and your opponent's active is now confused. So it is playing 2 counter catchers, um, probably to try to lock things, just like the Mawile plan was, except we're not actually locking them in the active with Spinda. We're just going to spread some damage. It does play the 1 Snorlax, so you can lock them that way. So yeah, still similar strategy. Very, very cool to see 2 people independently come up with different Frostlass builds that have these drastic differences, but also similarities throughout. So, like I said, I'm very interested to see if this actually becomes an archetype, because I think it's really really cool. But yeah, that's all I wanted to talk about today is this one tournament and the results from it and some of the deck lists from it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.